essentially everybody who's a leader, who thinks they're a leader, who wants to be a leader, speaking to all of them and talking to them about our strategy, how we were going to execute it, the timeline in which we were going to do it, and inviting those individuals to give me counsel on what we should do. And if they had a better idea, then I wanted to hear that idea. But we needed to move forward, otherwise the DUNBAR was going to be lost. No suggestions, recommendations, proposals were forthcoming. So, and I just want to back up a little bit about leaving their job. You need to give them some counsel, you need to give them some advice, and give them an opportunity to work this thing out, which we did do. I had personal meetings, gave leadership books, recommended taking additional graduate level courses. All of those sorts of things were offered, and some were accepted and some were not. But at the end of the day, the strategy that she was required to develop and execute on was not happening. So the board made its determination and voted, and then in April, I believe, of 2011, we parted ways. And in roughly around August of that year, and I'm really skipping over a lot of stuff because, again, we were talking to a number of different organizations. We talked to, I guess you name it, I talked to MLK, let me see, I got my little list here. We spoke to everybody. Behavioral Health Network, and actually Behavioral Health Network was an organization that I was a board chair of for a while, very strong financially, and what the DUNBAR needed was a very strong financial background. And they were willing to go forward, but there was some backlash, if you will, from the community about that, so we had to get off of that pony and jump on another one. So we went from that, and we talked with MLK for a while, and we spent a considerable amount of time and effort and resources trying to make an agreement with them. We entered into a memorandum of understanding. We began to exchange financial information and begin to work out governance structure and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, that did not work. And we had to back away from that. We talked with, who else did we talk to? Springfield Partners for Community Action. They're a very nice organization, just from a size and infrastructure perspective. That wasn't going to work. We looked at, again, a Martin Luther King, NCDI sort of tri-party agreement to see if that was going to work. But again, we had three entities that were essentially weak, and three entities that are weak don't make one strong. And then, of course, we needed to find a way to improve our revenue. So ultimately, and we even talked with the Girls Club Family Center about a joint development officer. We shared some expenses there. So we talked to them all. We ultimately ended up, at this time, Kirk was coming into town. There was a leadership transition going on at the Y, and we didn't talk to them at the time because we were going through these other things and wanted to see who they were going to elect. Once we had that established, we circled back around and started talking to Kirk about it, and it was a good synergy. A number of the groups that we've spoken to, individuals and groups that I had personally spoken to, there was a common theme. Preserve the legacy. We want to make sure that the executive director or director who runs the organization is a person of color, and we want to make sure that the entity that you join with has at its leadership a person of color. So, quite the matrix of things that I have to fill in to make it work and still have it be viable. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. People back weren't here. So, all right. So we ended up having these negotiations with the Y, and they're concerned, of course, about their own financial infrastructure, and that joining with the DUNBAR wasn't going to drag them down. But we were able to enter into a management services agreement with them. So we essentially have it split. DUNBAR Inc. continues to own and negotiate the challenges related to the financing with the bank. And we brought in DUNBAR specifically to rebuild our programs, increase the occupancy of the property, and manage the finances. We also spent a considerable amount of time working very closely together to negotiate with a number of our funders for a reinfusion of capital, because we were starving from a capital perspective, and we were able to raise $500,000 for 2 years to kind of bridge us over this until we could try to reestablish our membership program. And that money was used exactly for its purposes. It had to be overseen by really competent financial people, which DUNBAR had, and that was a prerequisite condition of the money coming from these organizations. So there was plenty of accountability related to where the money went, how it got spent, and what it was used for. Could not be used for the debt, period. It had to be used for operations. And I'm very pleased to say that DUNBAR has done a phenomenal job in executing on that part of the strategy that we asked them to do. We now have, literally the place was empty when they came in, and now we have 3,500 or more members. We wanted to diversify it across the whole age base, and we've got young and old and education and all those sorts of things, all been reestablished, and no one has, at least to my knowledge, any concern, at least the folks who've given us the money and we have to report back to, because there are metrics associated with this, none of them are concerned about our financial management either. On the other side is DUNBAR Inc. and its management of the debt. And I can tell you from loads of experience, just so you know, I got 34 years of experience in real estate finance. And I can tell you that this is a complex thing, particularly when you're dealing with swaps, which I deal with all the time, and other kinds of derivatives. So you have really two obligations. You have your note payment, and you have the swap, both of which are owed. So Bank of America, and I'll try to put this in context too, Bank of America, if you think about it and you've read all the news and listened to it, is one of those banks that has a lot of problems and has continued to have lots of problems. They just had a recent settlement with the federal government in the order of $13+ billion related to some of their financial dealings. I've worked with them on problem loans on a number of different occasions, and they are extremely difficult to work with. And we did have some negotiations. We did go back and forth on different proposals that they were willing to accept, but they were not significant enough discounts, if you will, for us to make it work. We just couldn't make it work. And right now we're still a break-even, not even break-even operating. It's negative cash flow, but we make that up through fundraising gifts and other sorts of things. So we have not been able to strike a deal with them, and ultimately they packaged up all of these loans. And there are other agencies, by the way, in the city of Springfield who have these same kind of loans with Bank of America. And I suspect they are packaged together and they're sold to essentially opportunity funds. And that's what happened. It was sold to an opportunity fund in a package. And that opportunity fund is now looking to monetize the investment, which is what they do. And they're not necessarily passionate about it, in the sense of caring what anybody else thinks. Their objective is they have investors, they create a fund, they borrow money, they buy packages of loans, and then they maximize the return of that investment back to their investors. That's what they do. And that's where we are right now. We have negotiations ongoing, and we'll have to see what happens. So that's kind of what brings us up to the point where we transition over to, in February of 2012, really as a sort of a celebration, if you will, of our ability to save the DUNBAR at that juncture in time. The governor came to Springfield, and we had a really large, well-publicized event at the DUNBAR recognizing the agreement between the Dunbar and the Y, and the funding from our partners and all that sort of thing. I know there's been some concern about, communication, and there have been a number of different points at which, I personally did, or Kirk did, or the Y did, issue communiques about the status of the Dunbar. And I always invited people to ask questions and solicit. I actually had alumni from out of town, that sort of thing. They were very concerned about that. At one point, before we entered into the agreement with the Y, we brought together some alumni with this express purpose of helping us work through the financial issues. But each meeting, there was a different contingency of people, and there just wasn't that stick-to-itiveness out of that group of people to get anything done. And I am impatient about that sort of thing. We have a mission. We got to save it, and I don't have the patience for that. So, we have to move on, and that's what I think.
Thank you. Good evening. I really appreciate this opportunity, Bishop Swan. Thank you, sir. NAACP Springfield Church. We appreciate Ellen Fryman. Walked in, and after we did introductions, the board chair for Dunbar, he said, Ellen, if you don't mind, if you could just stand for a second. Thank you, Ellen. And to me, you are a hero because you trusted a stranger to protect and sustain and grow something that was very important to you and to this community. And as Victor mentioned, I wasn't here very long before we started to have interactions around the possibility and the need to sustain and to save Dunbar. So first of all, I won't be very long. I don't want to get to the question, but I do want to say I'm not from Springfield. That's been broadcast, I think, pretty loudly. I'm not from Mason Square. I think that's been broadcast pretty loudly. But I know poverty. I'm not from Springfield or Mason Square, but I know what it's like not to have a father and be raised by a single mother with 8 children. Again, but I'm not from this area, but I know what it means to be fatherless and hate yourself and hate your life and have no hope. At 8 years old, I wanted to commit suicide because I hated who I was. I was born premature. I developed slowly. Can't tell by looking at me now. But I developed slowly. And my teeth, I'm okay. My teeth were brown for most of my life up until the age of 6 or 7. I was beat up and bullied on, and you name it. I went through it. My stepfather molested my sister at age 11. And so, believe me, I'm not from Springfield or Mason Square, but I know struggle. And my Dunbar was the boys' club. And it was there that I found value in who I was. And I saw people who looked like me later on in life, who were professional, who could speak well, who had a vision, who had intentions on being great. I had no idea what family was like. I'm a product of adultery. My father cheated on his wife and my mother and abandoned me. So I was a mistake from the beginning until I went to the boys' club. And I realized I am somebody. So I didn't need to be from Springfield or Mason Square to know how important Dunbar is. So you got to know this was God's assignment. So when I met Victor, God was in control. As try as we may, only God is sovereign. And so I knew when I met Victor, we were on the phone for 2 hours talking about, he didn't have to convince me. So I said, Victor, let me put a plan together. I hear what you're saying. Let me put a plan together, something that makes sense. I've been managing YMCA since 1998. And I also understand as an African American, the number one thing that I have to stand on is success and results. Because I'm not going to get it on my looks, although you would think so. But I won't get attention by getting results. And I spent my career getting results. Been married 23 years. I got my oldest son is 22, my middle son is 20, my baby boy is 17. And I raised them with the determination that they would never have to go through what I went through. And although I can't be a father to every child in Mason Square, I can give them the same experience that I had as a child. Again, by being around positive people. So I was about not where Dunbar stood, but what Dunbar stood for. With or without the building, it's going down in Mason Square. Bottom line. So when I talked to Victor, it was easy. So, okay, Vic, let me put this plan. See, when you got passion and you got a plan, you're going to get attention. So I put together a dynamic plan. And fortunately, I manage all types of YMCA's and community centers all over the country. And communities just like Mason Square. So we put that together. We got that plan together. So I took this presentation to my board. And again, I wasn't here quite a year at that time. So I'm still a stranger to many. I presented the plan to our board, and there was a little bit of trepidation. There were some questions and some concerns, and rightly so. But I convinced the board. I said, listen, if not the why, then who? This man has been everywhere. If not us, then who? And I also understood when I got here that there was a misunderstanding about the Y being exclusive and not for the black community. Nothing can be further from the truth. We subsidize over $2.5 million per year to make the YMCA accessible to all people. All over Western Mass, by the way. 14 cities and towns, we have a membership base of 115,000 people. That's my job. And I decided to put all of our energy into making sure we sustain DUNBAR. That's the fight. So we went to work, put together the plan, presented it to the board. The board said, okay, Kirk, take it through committee. I took it through committee. That committee said, take it through a committee. After I got to that committee said, you know, we need another committee to make sure the committee you went to for this committee was the right committee. And as soon as you get that done, we're going to put together a smaller committee, maybe something like an ad hoc. And I can remember being in meetings with Victor, and him and I sitting in this room, remember, around a bunch of bankers and lawyers and money folks, and they were frisking us. And I could almost hear him saying, without saying it, what are you up to? And remember, Victor, we'd walk out of the meetings and we'll shake our hands and we don't even know what the problem was. But these are very passionate people, skeptical. But we had a plan. And they said, okay, Kirk, you want to go into that community? And the board unanimously felt like, you know, we got to be there, Kirk, and we trust you. We trust your leadership to get it done. However, somebody say however. They said, you got to raise $500,000 in 90 days or the deal is off. Now, when I said, no, God is sovereign. So when they didn't realize that after that, I walked out, and you know what I told them? I said, oh, $500,000 piece of cake. I thought you were going to say $1 million or something. And I walked out there scared. And I prayed. And don't you know, in 80 days, we raised $500,000. That's right. To sustain DUNBAR. And we had we had 5 major funders step up to support that project. Because they were committed and they understood the history and the heritage and the legacy. And maybe I didn't have all that background. To the business plan was that we presented a model that was membership focused. It wasn't just program focused. It wasn't just about throwing basketballs, you know, shooting hoops and running track. Man, there's more to our people than that. So we got into, when we talk about education, we talk about families. Listen, now some of y'all don't know what this means. But you cannot help little Johnny if you don't help Big Mama. Y'all know what Big Mama is? I'm just saying, I don't know where y'all, like I'm from the hood. I don't know where y'all from. But from the hood, all the older women, the grandmothers, they was all the Big Mamas. They weren't big, they would just call them, you know, the Big Mama. Because they had control over everything. So we said, we got to serve Big Mama. Because here's what happens. When you're young, you want to look good. When you get older, you want to feel good. And when you get older than that, you want to live longer to enjoy your family. So what we said, okay, we're going to make sure we serve all three segments, each of those generations. So we want a place where Big Mama can come and sit down and do aerobics. How many ever sat down and did aerobics? While little Johnny ran around and did what he needed to do. And Mom can get a job so she can bring her children to be in a safe environment. We wanted that, where they can have positive role models, that people that look like them, listen, that they can believe in themselves by looking at us. And I remember one day I had a suit and tie on like this, right? And these little kids, I'm gonna stop. This is something I gotta share with you. So I got my tie on right, these little kids kept staring at me. Like I would walk past the room, they would all jump up, and they would run to the door and stare at me. So you know I'm ego challenged. So I kept going past, over and over for no reason, so they could keep standing up and looking at me. And one of the staff said, well, Kirk, they've never seen an African American dress professionally, a male. They've never seen that. And for you, to them, you're like a field trip. I said, I'm a field trip. So we made it happen. So here's what happened since. So when we got in there, we saw the hours were very limited. DUNBAR was closing. Some of you may know it was closing like about 5 or 6 on weekdays, closed on the weekend, right? We also understood that the trafficking activity was way down, as Victor mentioned. A lot of the funding went away because of 2008. However, it wasn't just, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't just the government cuts, but it was also a loss of contracts due to management letters. And what those are basically gigs or things that count against you when you manage things poorly. So if you got poor reporting, poor management practices, they'll take the funding. So when we went in to do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we recognized that it wasn't all the government's fault. Some of it had to do with management. So what I did, I marched my way to Beacon Hill and began to negotiate and convince funders at the government level to put their money back into Mason Square. Me right here has done an excellent job for us, and they're growing along with LeVar. Where's LeVar? They have got that. Make it happen. Get the performance, get the success, get the numbers. Now, meanwhile, we were negotiating, okay, the mortgage, as Victor mentioned, to try to get a discounted payoff. So we wanted to negotiate 30, 40 cents on the dollar to get it down to a reasonable number so we can pay it off and secure the property. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Bank of America sold it to the group in a bundle package where you cannot decipher what they paid. And since that time, we have still been having conversation with the new note holder to do the same thing. Now, Dunbar has two significant issues, and you must be aware of this. Okay, one is the property, the mortgage itself. We all know that, no secret. That's a black and white deal. You agree on a dollar amount, you sign the paperwork, you take over the property. Okay, that's simple. The deficit, however, is a long-term threat to Dunbar. It's a $100,000 per year deficit that the YMCA of Greater Springfield has underwritten through fundraising and profit centers within our organization, serving 14 cities and towns, 115,000 people, 19 centers, 30 education sites. So we take money from other areas, other communities, and other programs to support Dunbar. That's two issues. That's the two major issues. And if you really want to help Dunbar right now, and the Bible talks about it. I don't know, anybody here ever read the Bible? I mean, I know I'm in the church, but I don't know. I don't know. I want to be presumptuous. I want to assume I'm ready. But there's a story in the Bible about King David. Now, y'all know David had a lot of stories. He was a good man, but he had a weakness. But at any rate, he went to God, and he was a man of war. He went to God and said, God, I want to build a temple for you. I got this big house for me and my family, and all this, but you don't have a place to dwell. And he said, God, I want to build this temple. I want to build this temple. And I think about Dunbar every time I talk about this. And I want to build this temple. And God told him no. And he said, you can't build a temple for me because someone will tear it down because you're a man of war. You have way too many enemies to build a temple for me. As soon as you put it up there, tear it down because too many people hate you. And so God made David wait. And then finally he had a son, Solomon, who was a man of peace, who built the temple. And here's what I'm saying. We will not be able to build, sustain, and even grow Dunbar if we fight each other. If we keep fighting, it won't work. It's not about Kirk Smith. Kirk Smith, like everybody in this room, will come and go. It's about the legacy and saving those young people and keeping them alive. That's what it's about.
Kirk, before you sit down, what are the next steps? How can the community help?
Well, thank you. And how the community help now is join.
That's right.
Like your first donation to Dunbar is a membership. And listen, the price is whatever works for you and your budget. Because that's the thing that's going to address that operating deficit. That's the real threat to us long term. You have to know things are happening behind the scenes. We're working closely with Dunbar Inc. to come up with a resolution to secure the property. And you have to apply the Dunbar Inc. board, but before you do that, their decision to join forces with the Y was strategic. And that board has been nothing but passionate. And what they're saying throughout is we must sustain the Dunbar. And not one meeting, not one conversation was anything less than that. And again, Victor, man, he trusted a stranger. And so for the first time in my life, it was a benefit being black. He said, Kurt, the only way they're going to let any organization take over is if you're black. He said, are you black? I said, yes, sir. I said, out a membership tomorrow, tonight, whatever. That is the #1 way you can help Dunbar right now.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Victor.
Well, you do see.
So, we want to open up the floor at this time to your questions and concerns. Now, there may have been some who didn't want to ask them directly. You can write them on the index cards. But I'm going to ask those who wish to ask questions. Come here, Big Mike. This is Big Mike. We've already read the ground rules. Big Mike is here to enforce those ground rules. I'm going to ask that you can come to the mic, ask your question, and once you've asked your question, then you will take your seat to allow the next attendee to ask their question. So those who have questions, I'm going to ask that you would come, or else Big Mike can actually take the mic to you. And we'll start with this lady right here.
Source has hired a group of attorneys to proceed with the foreclosure, and what kind of timeline we're dealing with in terms of the foreclosure process, and are they at all, I know business is business, but are they all at all sounding like they're willing to talk to us?
Yeah, I'll address this question. There's no foreclosure sale in process. There's no foreclosure notice. That's an option that they have if we cannot reach a settlement because they have a mortgage on the property. But there's nothing in process at the moment. We are, as of here today, I was in touch with their lawyer, again, making another proposal. So that is an option that they have, and if that were to happen, and that might be something we decide is the best way to handle it, because they would schedule a sale, and then we could negotiate, we could have, as part of our strategy, arrange to have somebody there to buy the property. So, and maybe get it at a cheaper rate. So that's just one of the options that we have on, that we have on our list of ways to settle this situation. So it could be, having them sit, at the table, agreeing to an amount, and us raising the money and paying it, or if it gets to be an amount that's just not feasible for us to try to raise the money, that we say, okay, go ahead and foreclose, which they may, I don't know if they will or not, but if they were, and that we could arrange to have somebody, at the auction sale ready to purchase, and if they don't get the price that they want, then they have the right to bid in and take the property, and then they would own the property. I don't see that as an option. I don't think they want to own the property. Because of my experience with these kinds of investors, but their goal is to make money, is to buy these notes at a discount and then sell them, get in and out. So I don't think they have any interest in owning the community center. So that's why I don't expect there to be a foreclosure sale imminently until we keep negotiating. So thank you.
I'm Jerry Garner, GGGG, great-grandmother Jerry Garner, and I believe in 3 generations working together. I start with the children, I go to the parents, and then I go to the grandparents. I wrote a book about that. And I want to see Springfield using the 3 generations to solve the problem creatively. I believe it can be done.
And do you have a question?
And the question is, will you make it happen?
Thank you for the question. I'll stand in response. Since you stood, I'll stand too. Absolutely. We are committed to ensuring, again, that Dunbar continues to serve the Mason Square community in every way. Again, we've actually grown in our services, and we're actually drawing people from all over, from all 4 neighborhoods, actually. And so we are committed. We'll do everything in our power. And again, it's what Dunbar stands for and not where it stands. We want to stay there. We want to be in that building. But the mission is not predicated on 4 walls.
Good evening, Francine Pena Council. Very simple question. Do we have applications for membership here this evening? And can they be dispersed for all of those that are non-members? They can fill them out this evening and get it started.
Denise, do we have those? Yes, we do.
And when you fill out those memberships, we also have NAACP memberships.
Over here.
I'm Cindy Ely, Harding Storm. My question is, in listening to Madam Chair of the Dunbar, is when's the fundraiser to begin to raise the money to prepare for every scenario you are looking at?
I think that we are in discussions with and would do in cooperation with the Y. So that's like, and Kurt can tell you more about that.
Great. When can the community expect to hear something? Is there some way we can leave emails tonight, or we can read, because in that way people can prepare to write a check? Is that something, is there any way you can establish an account? You don't always have to use the money, but you can always establish one at one of the local banks.
If I could answer your first question about the fundraising activity. So as Ellen mentioned, the fundraising activity continues. So we are having discussions with other organizations and foundations to not only, again, stabilize the property, come up with a resolution for the mortgage, but also to underwrite the operating deficits. In terms of us accepting donations tonight, I would probably recommend that you give us your information, and we'll reach out to you and we'll go from there rather than taking money tonight. I think that's probably a more prudent way to go about it. So if you give us your information, we'll reach out to you. And we will have periodic updates.
You can tell that Kurt is not a preacher anymore. So with a crowd like this, you always want to take an offering.
Thank you for being here. This is Director Dunbar, Community Center, Inc. I love Kurt Smith, but I'm directing my attention now to Dunbar Community Center, Inc. Now, as you attempt to deal with the things that was outlined by Mr. Woodridge earlier in the program tonight, did you consider hiring somebody as dynamic as Mr. Smith to run Dunbar, to do fundraising, to make it continue as a live, well-funded organization?
Somebody that's made a commitment. So we do have, some resources that I've been using in our negotiations. So I haven't just made an offer. It has been backed by donations that we've already solicited and obtained. And everything that we do going forward, we want to do in concert with the Y. So that's the board's direction, and that's how we will proceed.
I guess I just add one other thing is that we have Kurt Smith, so I don't think I need to hire another one. We got this one, and he's very dynamic and very energetic, and we share the same values about rebuilding and preserving the Dunbar.
And I would say that, and thank you, Representative Swan, when you look at the landscape of nonprofits right now, and Springfield is absolutely no exception, that a number of nonprofits are either contracting, meaning they're shrinking their services or footprint, and some are closing altogether, and mainly due to the fact that many of the government dollars that many nonprofits depend upon They are going away. And we've watched over the past 10 years when it comes to fundraising, donors are given differently. And they're no longer, so you used to be able to show up to the doorstep with 2 little kids and you had a hungry face and they gave you money. And that's how easy it was to fundraise. But now, when you show up to the door with 2 kids with hungry faces, they're asking you, well, who are you partnering with? If I provide you enough for 2 meals, who underwrites the 3rd? And oh, by the way, there's 1,000 kids behind you asking us for the same dollar. That's changed for nonprofits, and we're feeling that. So really the strategy and the strategic move right now is to come together, and that's what you see now. That you're not going to lose Dunbar if the YMCA is in play. In fact, since the YMCA has been in play, you've gotten more of and out of Dunbar.
That's right.
So let's worry less about who's the leading organization and worry more about who are the people and the future leaders we're developing.
Amen.
So I'll tell you right now, the YMCA is committed to this community and committed to Dunbar. Listen, your legacy and heritage is not at risk being involved with the Y. The fact of the matter is, we are actually, Dunbar along with the Y, have been able to sustain and grow in an environment where nonprofits are doing the opposite. So to go out and try to replicate that, I think that's a waste of our time, to be quite honest. The YMCA doesn't make money off of Dunbar. I didn't get a raise. We have a very capable group executive director, Janice Watson, who's there every day, unlike me, and doing the real work, unlike me. So just take courage in that. Take courage in that. I think this is the right direction.
We're going to switch sides back and forth.
My name is Ben Lester. First off, I'd like to say Dunbar has a long history of prestige, not with just people from the community, internationally and national level as well. Okay, for Dunbar to be at this point is totally astonishing. Okay, what I would like to know is transparency. Nobody has come to figures about how much Dunbar is in arrears as far as the mortgage. I haven't heard that. You know, we want to know why it has gotten to this point where it seems like the last minute effort is being taken. And it should have been done a long time ago.
Probably didn't understand it.
So,
Needs clarification.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want, before they answer that, I just want to say, please ask a question. Please ask a question. Thank you.
and thanks for the question. I apologize, but maybe you weren't here when I was talking about some of the history, but this is not taking anybody by surprise, certainly not those who are affiliated with the Dunbar and on the board and the Y. We've been working on this for quite some time. So it's not a surprise in that context. It has been a problem, and I did talk about how, the challenges that we had both with the erosion of our revenue, with management, and the loss of leaders, and all that sort of thing. So those are the things that led to the challenges, and they've been persistent challenges. And then we kind of come through really the deep, dark valley that we had to go through, and then come and have the Y, join with the Y, and come back up out of that abyss in terms of our membership and all that sort of thing. We do still have the problems with the debt, but it is a process of negotiation. We do not control that part of the destiny. Look, the simple thing is money issues are solved with money. That's the bottom line. The Dunbar doesn't have the revenue to do that. We are dependent upon a number of folks that we've been working with, both foundations and all of our other benefactors, along with the Y and other concerned citizens, to try to find a solution. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to write a check. And if we want to save that building, so that's the bottom line with that. you know, some people, this may be a surprise to some of you, but it certainly has been something that we've been working on and hoping to resolve. Clearly, the sale of the note to Republic was a surprise to us, and we thought we were going to have the ability to continue to negotiate with the bank, and well, that's not the case. And so we turn a different corner, and we continue to work on the problem. No foreclosures scheduled. We still are having negotiations. They haven't been shut down, and the direction of where we're going to go is still to be determined. But one thing that hasn't changed, and that is our resolve to get through it all, and our faith that we will.
Question on this side.
Question: have you reached out to the big money people, the NBA? They come in Springfield annually. You know, got a lot of African Americans in the NBA. I think they can help us solve our problem here.
I don't think it'll take you long to realize that I'll reach out to everybody for money to support our work. And to answer your question, not the NBA specifically, but we've reached out to a number of foundations, regional and national, for support. And as Ellen mentioned, we do have some backing and some support, and a pretty significant group of funders have stepped up and they're talking with us now to back us on a deal to secure the property. And that's kind of where we are now. We're having those conversations. I'm not at liberty to disclose because of their request to remain anonymous, at least until we get a deal done. But you do have to know some significant funders have stepped up already, and they're working with us in the midst of our negotiations, which are difficult. And it's not as simple as, a dollar amount, although it ultimately comes down to money. But there's a lot of things that goes into these negotiations and these packages. And so we're having those conversations as we speak. So a number of major funders have stepped up.
Question here.
Have you considered crowdfunding for raising money? This is an opportunity locally to participate as we develop a crowdfunding campaign.
Thank you. I didn't know what that meant, but somebody just told me it was the internet, so raising money online. We do that for this particular situation. The focus has really been concentrated on the mortgage, and as I mentioned, we do have some backers with us to help us sort of negotiate the payoff. So right now, we want to kind of keep our focus there, but in terms of ongoing funding, again, the long-term issue of the deficit, we certainly will participate in that type of fundraising to sustain Dunbar long-term.
Since your wife is doing a lot of the talk, has the relationship been modified between the Dunbar and the Y? Because talking about raising funds and like that, we've already had a situation. Is the money that we do raise going to the same people?
Well, let me see if I can answer your question, make sure I understand the question. I think the first part of it is, why is doing all the talking? Well, the nature of our agreement with the Y is that they do exactly what they're doing. They manage the operations, they manage the finances. So, frankly, all of the money that comes into the Dunbar is managed by the Y. And we cooperate with them because it's to our interest to do so on fundraising. If they appear to be taking the lead on it, it's because that's the contract. That's the deal we negotiate. And what we're trying to do, or I should say the board is trying to do, because I'm not the we anymore, is to work, again, cooperatively with everyone that is involved in this, whether it's the Y or our funders and the bank and so forth, and the lawyers, is to find resolutions of the debt. So they're talking about it because the contractual agreement is that's what they do, and that's why we hire them. Again, it's the separation of duties that I talked about earlier on, about the board and its strategy, and then handing over day-to-day operations to someone, whether it's a CEO or somebody that you hire, and we hire them, in essence. So that's the reason why it is the way it is. I hope I answered your question.
Since you're about saving souls, have you tried to partner with all the churches in Springfield as partners?
I do want to say, trying to get all the churches together, good luck with that. with a number of churches on some initiatives to provide programs and services, and to get an infusion of revenue through membership through those types of partnerships. Where again, it's not just something we ask you to pay for, but we're giving you a return on your investment. So we actually visit churches and provide group exercise classes. We work with churches to reduce medication altogether, to get folks off medication. We know hypertension and diabetes are huge issues in our community. So we actually work with a number of churches in that way. But in terms of we partner with multiple churches, just not all at the same time. Like, we don't have all the churches in the same room. Bishop, I don't know if
I understand what you're saying. I mean a financial partnership with every church.
To that extent, again, when it comes to membership, to those types of membership special rates for churches, yeah, we've done that.
I mean all churches now, not just African American churches.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. Yeah, white people, they have churches.
Praise the Lord. Question?
I understand that you have community partnership. I understand that the YMCA and the money that you're talking about is supposed to go toward all programs. But everybody in this room is here about the Dunbar. And I would like to know clear, straight, and plain, like when I had money coming out of my paycheck going directly to MLK and Dunbar specifically, the money that is going to be raised from here until we can secure that building, is it going directly to the Dunbar, or do we need to sit down and speak with the YMCA to renegotiate to make sure the money is coming directly to the Dunbar to save the Dunbar community, period?
Okay, the Dunbar is the Y, and the Y is the Dunbar.
You have a question, Mike?
Yes. At one point, I know that the Dunbar and the Y used to receive funds from DCF, Department of Children, Families, and other agencies. Is that something that had stopped? And I'm wondering, is that something you're going to be proceeding with again? Because you charge top dollar with them.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll actually give you, it's funny you mentioned DCF. I know you talk about other government agencies. And I will tell you, when we went in, as I mentioned, before we put together the business plan to go into Dunbar in the first place, we did a SWOT analysis, okay? So we looked at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, one of the weaknesses was administrative oversight, okay? The threat was that a number of funders, government funders, were going away because of that, and DCF was one. And you're talking about a contract that was in the neighborhood of about $100,000 annually. So what I had to do was go and convince and get in front of DCF and convince them that they can trust the Dunbar again. Because the Dunbar has the right type of leadership and the infrastructure and the wherewithal to sustain and leverage their support because they're part of the YMCA. And so as a result, we got DCF back. Oh, good. And we did that with several other budgets and money coming from the Commonwealth. So yes, that's happening, and we'll continue to grow that.
Question right here.
There's about 12 revenue streams for Dunbar right now. Yeah.
Hi, DUNBAR. I just house one. I hear you saying that, and I think I forgot your name. Victor. Sorry, Victor. That you said that the partnership between the Dunbar and the YMCA, that YMCA is doing the day-to-day operation. I'm hearing you correct? Okay. How many board members are currently on the Dunbar?
There are 8 of us.
8.
Put a bit of capital into the Dunbar building, by the way. And then the annual campaign to write things like the deficit. The second group are special events. So you heard about our Celebrity Classic Weekend, the different things that we do to bring funding into centers like Dunbar. And the final area are grants. Okay, so we have a department of development professionals who write grants, who fundraise, who put all these events together that I oversee to make sure that all the funding is going to the right places. So we have a certain amount of funding that goes into Dunbar year-round to make sure we can sustain it, which are a number of grants. That is a management function. Where the board participates is in the solicitation. So typically, our board chair, Sarah Williams, is here. Sarah and I would go out and we would ask a major funder to give the Y a certain amount of money or give Dunbar a certain amount of money. That's what the board does, but the board does not get involved with the minutia of writing grants. We need them to spend their time doing other things.
And addressing the community. As the mortgage issue is resolved and the Dunbar, why Dunbar becomes owner of the mortgage, owner and holder of the mortgage, I appreciate your passion and really am thankful for your expertise. If your successor, when and if you decide to leave your current position, lacks your passion and your commitment to the community, is it possible that you will be putting the Y, Dunbar, Y, contractually obligated to give community first right of refusal if the Y, Dunbar, Y decides at some future date to liquidate the asset or the burden of the Dunbar Y?
It's a very good question, and it's a great question. So what I think I hear you saying, so if I left and somebody came along that wasn't as passionate, decided, you know what, we need to jettison Dunbar, what protection does the community have, or would the community have the option to hold on to it should that happen, right? So let me tell you some of the safeguards we have in place. One of the first things I said, this is bigger than Kirk Smith. And as great as I think Kirk is, this is bigger than him. And the way I've set it up was for that to be so. And one of the ways is we have a dynamic board of directors who are committed to Dunbar, who love Dunbar. They love me, but they love Dunbar. And they're committed to sustaining Dunbar. Once Dunbar becomes a seamless part of our operation, like any of our locations, for us to have any threat against Dunbar is a threat against the YMCA of Greater Springfield. Okay? Now, in the event that something happens, and we have to decide, well, you know, we can no longer pay for Dunbar, right? Then obviously those conversations will happen. This is why we set up an advisory board. Okay? The advisory board at Dunbar is designed to protect, to be the gatekeepers for Dunbar. And if the advisory board had to protect Dunbar from the Y, you best believe they would. But how do you protect yourself from yourself? The fact of the matter is that we have safeguards in place. No one can promise anything. I can't tell you something will never happen. But I will tell you there's enough safeguards in place to make that highly unlikely. But if the community was to go in and support Dunbar through membership, it's going to be real hard to take something away like that if you own it. And so what happened the first time will never happen again.
All right. One last shot. Are there any other questions? It is quarter to 8. We will finish 30 minutes.
We have one more question.
We would have.
Hi, my name is Tiger, and the question I have is there also a plan in place for in a future date and time that the Dunbar will stand on its own? Or will it always be Dunbar Y Dunbar?
Well, I would hope that, again, I'm just having difficulty with when you say standing on its own.
Will it become...
If you expect the Dunbar to somehow no longer be a part of the Y,
right.
That's not in the plans.
The financial part. Will they financially be able to stand on their own?
Well, like all our operations, we want them to be self-sustaining at some point because Dunbar is not our only location that operates at a deficit. So absolutely the hope is that Dunbar, the location, will be self-sustaining at some point. Will it no longer be in a deficit, but we hope it'll always be a part of the Y.
I heard mention that there will be some other follow-up information times when we get other updates. I didn't hear how that would happen. So my question is, we don't hear from you in the community, whether they be people or organizations, send you questions or invitations. Will you honor them?
Well, absolutely. If we get invitations to come out and have conversations and meet with folks, absolutely, we will respond to that. But in terms of getting updates, if you could give us your information, you can always go to springfieldY.org. But what we can do is if we have your information, we'll put you on the list and make sure that you get periodic updates as to the progress of the Dunbar negotiations.
If the money is out there and you have significant lenders and funders ready to back you, and the Dunbar is facing foreclosure, why isn't the debt paid rather than worrying about the relationship between the Y and Dunbar?
Good question.
Well, we have thank you for your question. So we have some funders that are working with us to back us.
We do a widespread membership drive that everyone knows about.
Thank you. Of the Dunbar Y. Another thing in terms of media and exposure, there's an interview coming up that's very, very detailed that'll happen with myself and Victor in the point of view that's coming up, and they're going to get a full deal. It might be 2 parts on all of this. And of course, once that happens, we know that'll be picked up at many different media outlets. Visit our Facebook page and you can like us there. There's a lot of information coming via the other way and also on Twitter. Springfield Y.
Is how each person in this room can help.
Are there any community leaders or community members on the advisory board or the board?
Yes, we got one right here.
All right, question in the back.
Excuse me.
What our children that do attend Dunbar, why the location we would have to travel to the Chestnut Street or